Hello, Wanderers. As a quick reminder, you can follow us on our socials. And if you like what we do, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast listening app. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the second arc of Wanderlust. Last time on Wanderlust.
I saw a creature last night, and it talked to me. I'm calling it a forest phantom, because it was made from forest detritus.
Estelle wants to go over to kind of where you point out that where it showed up.
And as you're running your hands through leaves and all of that, you feel a sharp pain in your finger. And you look down and you just have like a small cut that starts to bleed and a faint tingling in that fingertip.
So, I'm not going to say I know what this is, Juliet, but in Rosa Riviera and the Search for the Old City, there is an old professor who gets turned into a sentient tree monster.
Anyway, Estelle, you have the most experience with Sheriff Mitchell. How should we handle this?
Yeah, see, what I was planning was we show up with the kids, we rub it in his face. I might have some choice words for what I think of him as sheriff, and then I was about 50-50 whether I punch him for it.
If there are perhaps other mysteries that Sheriff Mitchell doesn't want other people to be wandering about finding answers to, maybe he would be amenable to us continuing to do that if you are all interested in still being in the wilds?
I am super down with that.
To be honest, I was kind of thinking something along the same lines.
Mitchell already knows that I plan on being involved with the wilds and the animals out here in some way, shape, or form.
You can almost see it like a liquid, like there's surface pressure as the clouds push up, and you see like a massive, expansive something break the surface, the hide of which seems to be some kind of like mottled gray and a little bit of green of like some kind of moss on it, like break the surface and then sink back below. And when it drops back below, you feel an impact on the ground.
You're seeing that, right?
Yep, definitely seeing that.
Like giant mountain walking away?
I'm gonna leave a note saying we found the kids, headed back to Smokey Banks. Invitation is still open if you want to visit.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Okay, got
The
it.
GM is smiling.
Hugo will remember this. Yup.
Things are knocked over. Like, what trees there are seem to have been blown over. It almost looks like a hurricane hit. Yeah, I figured we need to have a talk about some of this. Faint rain sounds through Smokey Banks.
A lovely evening to all of you beautiful people out here in Smokey Banks. Just a few announcements this rainy, dreary evening. First of all, I know that Smokey Banks is beautiful in a storm, but the Mediator Council would like to caution all people to stay indoors. This storm is supposed to be one for the records. On that note, our Sheriff Mitchell is looking for volunteer emergency responders, so please help keep Smokey Banks safe and contact Sheriff Mitchell. Next, on a brighter note, our Danaeus team captain Cal feels that, and I am quoting here, we are going to lose much worse than usual this year due to a sharp uptick in multiplayer aerial pileups. Just a reminder to our team captain Cal and all of those that play the Danaeus games, solar boards are not legal in the Danaeus games. Now, Everyone, please find a book or a warm cup of tea or a loved one to curl up with and enjoy the epic orchestral sounds of Lunar Movement, Act 1, The Prelude to Collision by Petra Stosky, performed by the new remote symphonic players.
The sounds of a storm are now in full motion over Smokey Banks.
Hello, all you lovely people. I hope you are all staying dry. No need to panic, but residents of Old Town are being requested to evacuate. City Hall is your best bet. We have hot chocolate and blankets and games for the kids to keep everyone busy. So, please get here if you can.
We now hear full-blown sounds of hurricane over the intercom.
This is an emergency request from our Sheriff Mitchell. The Warrens are... Old Town has seen serious damage. We are in desperate need of volunteers to aid in... Please get to City Hall.
Thunder crashes and the comms go silent for the rest of the storm. Alright, all of you re-enter Smokey Banks a few days after a storm, well, probably like a day after a storm has gone through town. You entered back in through the ruins where you found Sheriff Mitchell, who basically just said, hey, you have some explaining to do. And that is right where we are picking up. So, what is everybody doing?
I'm leveling up.
I will hurt you.
The amount of times Cody has said off recording, you don't need to do this on recording, just made this joke. You know, guys, everyone, if you'd been here for the, 3 other times he's talked to us saying we don't need to do this on recording, it'd be really funny.
I just feel like I've gotten a lot of questions about when we're leveling up, and if we're leveling up, and if it's okay to level up now, and I'm like, yes, because it isn't going to be diegetic.
I just wanted to make sure that, you didn't want us to wait until after, our conversation with Sheriff Mitchell, you know? You never know when I'm going to use my athletics in the middle of a conversation with Sheriff Mitchell.
Sheriff Mitchell's just standing there looking at all of you after accusing you of this being your fault, just waiting for someone to say something.
Where's Matthew?
He hears you say that, he looks at you, he's frustrated, and just goes, Matthew's fine, he's down in the Warrens, that's where you should probably look.
Estelle's gonna just take off with Guffey.
Estelle, wait, no!
Why don't you just come with us and you could tell us on the way? What happened here?
Also, we found the kids. You know, the ones who were definitely on the boat, not lost in the wilderness, those ones?
Cool. So you found the kids. I'm really proud of you. I'm glad that happened. I actually am glad that happened and that you guys wandering out into the wilds and stirring up trouble actually had some good happen, not just us getting our town destroyed. How many times did I ask you guys to stay on the path and not go and mess around with the wilds? Was it once or twice? Maybe a few times, right? I think I made it pretty clear. I made it clear, right?
Hang on. Are you blaming us for this?
Okay, let me ask you something. Did you recently go out and start messing around in the wilds?
I wouldn't call it messing around. We went out and found the kids.
Yep. Okay, so cool. Here's the thing. I don't know if you're aware, but stuff around town has been getting weirder for a while, and I know you guys are new and feel like you know everything and don't want to listen, but here's the thing. It seems that the more people keep messing around in the wilds, the increase in frequency, we have odd occurrences like a freak hurricane that came from land. You understand that, right? The hurricane didn't come from the sea. It came from that way, and he points towards the wilds. That's not where hurricanes come from.
We don't have any meteorological powers, if that's what you're suggesting.
No, I don't think that you guys have meteorological powers. I don't believe that. Do I think that something in the wilds most definitely might? Sure, yeah, that seems really feasible.
Does it, though?
Also, you could ask us if we saw anything like that before accusing us?
Oh, okay, cool. Did you see anything gigantic and weird out in the wilds?
Not before the storm hit you guys.
Yeah, actually, you guys totally did, yeah.
No, not before it.
Yep, you did.
We saw a storm?
You didn't see a storm, but you saw something gigantic and weird, yeah.
Oh, I mean, well, okay.
It was moving away from the town when we saw it, I thought.
Well, it was moving parallel to town.
I thought we saw it yesterday, so it would have been...
Mm-hmm.
And the storm hit, like you said, a few days ago?
No, it would have hit yesterday. Sorry, timeline's bad, yes.
We did not disturb anything like that? We may have saw something large, but it sounds like it happened around the time it had already hit town, so I don't think that's really to blame us for.
I'm going to try to think of the right way to say this. Just because there is not a direct correlation between you guys can make storms and whatever actually did cause this storm, what I am saying is, it seems that the more often people mess around with the wilderness, the more often it messes with us. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I mean, that is also just correlation.
Sure is. Yup. That's a fact.
So what you're saying is we should have let the kids die.
What I'm saying is people should do as they are told when it comes to the fact that, okay, do you think that they're the first kids that have gone missing or the first things that have been killed by the wilderness?
No, and that's a problem.
They're not. They're definitely not. And so I spend a lot of time trying to get less people, not no people, because that seems impossible, but less people killed by the wilds. It's not a fun job.
We just helped bump your numbers up by 3, so you're welcome.
Okay, cool. This is a conversation to be had later. For now, the town still needs help, so maybe we focus on that. So we are going to cut away from this for a moment. Where are the 3 of you going to head? You don't all have to go to the same place, by the way.
I think I want to take care of the kids.
Let's say Sheriff Mitchell takes them and walks off.
Okay, if he takes them and walks off, what would be like an obvious thing that needs help? Like manual labor is what Autumn would do.
Okay, I will provide that. What about Juliet and Fred? Where would the both of you head?
I think Juliet would go with Autumn.
Okay. And what about Fred? Anything you specifically want to check on Fred? Like, like particularly places of interest, stuff like that?
Fred is going to go check on his shop.
Okay, perfect. So we are going to cut to Autumn. No, I'm sorry, not to Autumn first. We're going to cut to Estelle first. So you just said you're basically taking off running. You heard the sheriff kind of briefly say, check the Warrens, but do you want to go by your place first, or are you just heading straight to the Warrens?
I'm going straight to the Warrens if that's where he says Matthew is.
Okay, cool. So as you're running down towards the Warrens, and I can actually pull this up on our new awesome map, Estelle, you start making your way down towards the Warrens. So you have to go kind of down the cliff face, which is a bunch of switchbacks back and forth, and then, over a bridge that's over the river that cuts the town in half, and then you basically have to go past City Hall, through the gardens, then into Old Town, through Old Town, and then into the Warrens, right? Mm-hmm. And as you go, what you see of damage is very strange. It is not unlike what the sheriff said, right? The damage does not seem at all focused on the coast. If anything, the opposite. The closer things were in town, and also the further north things were, kind of the worse things were. So, the Market District clearly has a ton of damage. City Hall doesn't look terrible, but you can see that, the radio tower that Willow, makes announcements through is, broken over and on the ground. You can see a lot of people milling there. And you're just sprinting through all of this, and then you get to Old Town and see the parts of the city that have never been converted. And these weren't necessarily hit the hardest, but were the least structurally sound and the highest buildings. And in fact, you can see that the eco stays, massive, cave-ins have happened. So, clearly a lot of water rested on the building. Wind hit them. They crushed down. So this is where you can see, the most clear damage is, you can see your apartment smash down. Basically, the apartment above it fell into your apartment, right? You could tell that just by looking through windows as you run past. Mm-hmm. Getting to the Warrens is kind of odd. It's sort of it's an odd part of town, this underground area that's sort of built into the old sewers and underground. What's up?
Quick question. While I'm running by, do I see how the vet office is that also destroyed?
You wouldn't be able to see that as clearly. It's sort of further south, but
Okay.
you don't have a clear visual on that.
Okay, have a bad feeling though.
But you make your way to the entrance of the Warrens, and it's not abandoned, but it clearly looks like water has poured down in here at some point. Like the stone steps seem slicker than usual. As you go down, the walls are damp. You can see water lines like higher than you would want water lines to be. And the kind of like general smell is very like musty, which it's never been great because it is sort of like a shanty town where young people live because they're gross, you know?
Mhm.
So that odor was always there, and it's just getting worse as you're clearly walking into an area that has flooded. So you make your way down to the Warrens, where you've been one time before. You know, it's like these, it's like long underground tunnels that are pretty large, and then like a small town built out of wood basically in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see people milling around, and it's just chaos. Like you feel like the number of people down here has somehow tripled. It's loud, it's noisy, they're shouting. Not really like fights breaking out, but you can tell people are frustrated and just kind of listless almost, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Estelle, is she still okay? Is she like coming down, still like looking down over people, or is
Yeah,
she,
we could
like...
say yes, like you're making your way through the steps, yeah.
Okay,
Or
so
no.
she's not quite to the crowd yet. I think she pauses pretty like high up still to scan for Matthew.
Make me a perception check. Or some kind of roll to look for.
I think inquisitive is probably my
That
only
could work,
one.
yeah.
Okay. All right, that's a +2.
Okay, so with a +2, you scan around and you don't see Matthew anywhere, but you kind of like have this parental, like, stupid anxiety moment where you're like, there's been a disaster, I don't see Matthew, and then you like see the first aid tent. And you're like, well, he's definitely in there and all of his arms and legs are off and he's on fire. You know what I mean? Like that,
Yeah.
like gut wrenching, like, oh no.
Yeah. Okay. In that case, she heads to the first aid tent.
So when you start making your way through there, it's seeing it, you were like, yeah, I could get there, no problem. And then once you're like in this really tight, narrow area full of people just like freaking out and jostling you around, it's like getting thrown into the ocean. You're just kind of getting like slammed around as you're trying to walk your way through this crowd and pick your way slowly, you know, the whole time just envisioning worse and worse things.
Mm-hmm.
Until you get to the door and it's just like they've converted a building just to go like, hey, you know, like check on broken bones, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Locally here, because there was clearly a lot of damage in this area, like you can see like broken down buildings and stuff like that. And when you walk in, you push the tent open and you can see kind of like a small crowd in the back. And you hear a familiar voice, right? Now, so that's what I was saying, right? I knew in that moment when I saw the building collapsing and I heard the screams of children inside, I knew I could either risk my life and be
Matthew?
able to live with my...
Matthew!
I mean, no, I never saw a crumbling building and I don't know who all of you are. What? Hi, Mom. I'm fine. Hi, Mom. You should come back later when there's less people. Come back later. You don't need to be here right now. You should come back later though.
Estelle, she runs up right to him and she hugs him.
So you like push through a crowd of like rapt looking faces who are all staring at him like kind of worshipfully. And when you get to him, he's like propped up on a pillow. He has like a bandage over one eye. He's got like bandages on his shoulder, like across his chest, and he has his arm in a sling, and he has a cane next to him. Huh?
Okay, don't hug him.
So I'll say you like get there and you're like about to hug him. He's like, no, it's tender. It's tender everywhere. Everywhere is tender because a building fell on. Because there was a build. And he like looks around at the crowd. He was looking kind of good in a way. Like he was propped up. You could tell he wanted the cane to be there for effect.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, why don't you guys go back and I'll tell you the story later about the nothing. I'll tell you.
Give me 5 minutes with him, folks. Just
everyone leaves, there's definitely, like, one girl, like, puts her hand on his shoulder and just goes, like, you were brave. She, like, walks away.
You're so brave.
And he just kind of looks at you and goes, you know, given all this, I wish that I got something out of it, you know, other than nothing. So...
I mean, it looks like you're getting plenty of attention from it.
Well, I had a building fall near me, so...
Okay, yeah, you want to tell me what happened?
Do you want to tell me what happened? You left, alright, and then there was a storm that destroyed, like, the city, so, you know,
Okay,
I don't feel like...
I left you a message.
Yeah.
I told you what I was doing.
Yeah, and then, but I couldn't really ask you permission if I could sign up to be a volunteer to run into collapsing buildings and grab people out of them, so...
Oh, is that what you did?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't admit to that out loud. But, do you want to hear the story about, you know? Yeah, that's what I did, alright? Like, really early on, it ended up being good because, alright, so, there was the storm, things were getting bad. I left, like, right away. Let's go and volunteer with the sheriff because apparently he thought things were going to get bad. He was right. Things got crazy. So, anyways, I was gone from the apartment before it even collapsed. But then I got sent back to Old Town to try to help people escape from the building as it was collapsing. And then, yeah, there's the story about hearing kids screaming in the building and then going like, oh, you know, I could either... The line that I was going to say is I could either not rescue the kids and not be able to live with myself the rest of my life, or risk certain death but be able to live with myself for what was left of my life. And I did the latter one. That was the line that I was going to feed him. I thought about it for a long time, so... You think it's a good line? Or is that like a... That's like an...
There's a kid, like, wheezing next to him. It's a good line.
Thanks, man. He was one of the ones in the building. Sorry I didn't get there sooner. Alright? But I did drag him out.
Hey, I have my life, thanks to you.
Nah, he was good. He just had some rocks fall on his everything, but he's alright.
Okay, first of all, yes, that's a good line.
That's
a good one.
Thank you. Hopefully what you did was worth you missing all this and leaving me here to deal with it.
Well, you know, I think we were both in the business of saving some kids, so, Estelle, puts out, her hand to, like, fist bump his good one.
He just goes, ow! And then, like,
the good one!
Flings his arm forward. I dislocated my everything from the rest of me, so, you know.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, at first, like, while you were gone, I did hurt myself because I cut myself while I was cooking. And I was like, oh, Mom's gonna be mad when she gets back and she finds out I cut myself while cooking. And then this happened, and I was like, well, at least I won't get in trouble for cutting myself while cooking now, you know, because I probably should have just not mentioned it. This cut came from the building, not from me attempting to cut garlic with my eyes closed. Which I can do, but anyways, I digress.
You know, I feel like I'm still going to be a little bit mad at you for cutting yourself while cooking, because if you're cutting yourself while cooking, you're doing something stupid.
I was cutting garlic with my eyes closed.
Exactly, there's something stupid.
It's not stupid, it's cool. It's not stupid, it's cool. If it can't be stupid and cool.
Yes, it can.
I love Matthew so much.
It's not kind of like, she like rubs her temples, and it's just like, I can't really be mad at you. Because we basically we're doing the same thing, so...
Family business, right? You run after big scary monsters, I run after big scary buildings. At least you can eat your thing, I can't really...
Maybe don't use big scary buildings as your descriptor.
Hey, look, they were eating it up. They were blown away, so, you know.
Oh yeah, you being a big hero. Alright, what can I do to help you?
Well, I don't know what you can do to help me right now, other than not interrupt me when I'm telling this story to an audience of people that are all looking at me like kisses might cure wounds. But...
Definitely going to be judging you for that for a while.
That's fine, you know, that's okay. But, here's the thing, you don't have a home anymore, so...
Yeah, I got that impression.
And you
running
can't live
through.
down here with me. I don't know where we're gonna live, but for right now, I got a friend I'm living with, so...
Oh.
Excuse me, that was a building cough.
I guess I'll figure that out later.
I mean, you made friends, right? So, just,
Yeah.
sleep on one of their couches, or,
definitely have friends.
you could always move back in with Grandma, huh?
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, you could. I'm sure she's got your old room ready for you.
Nope, not
She'll
gonna
cook
happen.
you breakfast, just don't tell her my address. I'll go and visit them soon. They're fine, by the way. I did check on them. They're fine. They're alright.
Good. Glad to hear it. Well, I guess I'll give you a little bit of time to recover.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a lot of time to recover. Definitely lots of time. Because of how wounded I was doing heroics.
Yeah, alright. You keep, yeah. And as Estelle will start to head out, and as before she, leaves so that his adoring fans can come back, she looks back and, she goes, I love you. Try not to hurt yourself anymore, please.
Oh, yeah, by the way, I forgot one thing. I love you too, first of all. I do love you too. Second of all, totally spaced on it. While I was running around with the sheriff, I did hear some people saying that they, were seeing things in the storm. So, keep an eye out for things in the storm.
Did they say what kind of things?
At the time I was having buildings fall on me.
Okay, alright, I get it. Thank you.
I don't know if you've ever had a building fall on you.
Love you, Matthew.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah, and she'll head out.
So you head out and you see, the gaggle of people, all who are, ashen-faced, be like, did you see him save my little brother? He pulled my grandma out. Well, he was also carrying a dog. He's a hero.
Estelle kind of, gestures, alright, go back in.
Back at him.
They all kind of look at you ugh, and just go back in.
Okay.
You hear one of them whisper, I'm pretty sure that's her.
Hashtag motherhood.
Alright.
I'm sad that no one else, who listens to this later will get to see Mandy's face for that, because it was perfect.
And then I think Estelle is gonna head up back up to Old Town because she doesn't feel very welcome down in the Warrens.
Do you want to say you're headed back to, because you mentioned Vector Rentals, do you want to try to head that way?
Back to where?
Vector Rentals.
The vet.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you can start heading that way and we're gonna cut back to the other part of the group. Okay, so we are gonna handle Estelle and Juliet next. So
Not Estelle.
you're right, Autumn and Juliet next. So Autumn and Juliet.
Next he's gonna say there can't be more than one vowel first name.
Sorry, hang on one second. So just as a thing to understand on the recording, all of us are sick, or 3/5 of us are kind of sick. So this is a little bit of a struggle. Anyways,
Not sick, but on my 4th cup of tea today, for those keeping track at home.
back up on the surface, Autumn and Juliet, you said you were just looking for a place where manual labor was needed, right?
Yes.
So you make your way towards the center of town. Fortunately, like I said, the way the damage works, it's the lofts and the lighthouse that's along the coast. That's actually not where you see the most damage. However, the town hall itself actually has seen a fair amount of damage, namely that this giant post is snapped off and is laying on the ground, which is keeping the PA from working, which is making communication difficult.
And also means we can't communicate with other eco herbs, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yes. So that itself is kind of a difficulty, right? It's a big deal for your town to not have that. So I'll say the three of you make your way there. There's a large crowd there doing work and stuff. You feel like you can find some manual labor. And then Fred, you kind of can make your way from there over towards the market. So you kind of head off that way and we'll handle you in a second. So, Juliet and Autumn, you find yourself like kind of in this crowd of people that are all kind of bickering and arguing a little bit. Like I said, the like big comms tower is like snapped off and on the ground. What are you kind of looking to do here? What type of person are you trying to find?
Repair comms tower seems too vague for what I'm trying to do.
It kind of is and isn't. That's okay. If like it is a big deal, and it is sort of like, in terms of like technical infrastructure, it's the main thing that's damaged in this area, right? Like there's maybe like smashed windows, debris on the ground, plants are kind of hurt, people are taking care of that. But for sure, there is kind of this issue of a very large, tall, kind of spooky tower that someone's going to have to try to like fix. So that's going to be a little bit of a thing.
I think Juliet would go join the people who are like trying to rescue the plants or like salvage the garden area.
Okay, cool. What I want you to do...
Is that okay?
Yes, it is. Make me a notice check.
Okay.
I think Autumn would try to find the person in charge of fixing the comms tower, or like the group that's like trying to do that, I think would be a more specific goal.
What do we roll for this again?
Roll your fate dice. 4 fate dice.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, you mean like actually which dice? Yeah, you just need to add some skill to it.
4.
You rolled a 4 total?
Yep.
Dad gum. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so yeah, the plants do look a little worse for wear, especially in this area. Not only are they just kind of like knocked over, you have to like kind of like pick them back up and replant some of them. So you start assisting with this, right? As you go through, you're very used to seeing like a healthy, basically entire like life circle living in these plants, right? So they're not like, the goal is not to keep bugs out of the plants. If anything, the opposite, right? Like, we want to encourage pollinators to live here. You want to encourage bugs that kill certain like dead plants or ones that can help deteriorate stuff. But as you go through, you notice a much higher quantity of like pretty large and pretty hungry looking, like sort of imagine a mix between like a grasshopper and a praying mantis. So, like long, powerful jumping legs, pretty big teeth. They don't necessarily look carnivorous, and you can see that they are eating at the plants like more than you would expect them to, and you're able to like pull maybe like a couple samples and like hold them in your hand and be like, this is a strange insect, like maybe call it 4 inches long, so like the size of your palm, and just not a species you really recognize. Nothing that alien, just kind of odd, and odd to be here. Like, eco herbs, yes, encourage a lot of life to exist in a certain area, but they don't encourage all life to exist in a certain area, right?
Right. It's a balanced ecosystem that's purposely maintained. Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels like you see a lot of them. And as you kind of like are holding this thing in your hand, you kind of like more feel than hear someone come up behind you and gently rest a hand on your shoulder.
Hello.
And when you go, hello, he goes, hi, sorry. It is me, the professor who hired you to come here. Hi, how are you?
Oh,
it's
hello.
Good to see. I thought you were probably, dead because of...
Thankfully, no. We, found the kids that were missing and have...
Did you bring back what killed them?
No, I can give you a thorough description of the creatures, and I do have some samples, both flora and fauna, I think.
Well, I am very glad that I hired you. I see you...
Yes, I would love some help identifying them.
Definitely. Come by my office soon, please. I see you've met a friend. And he like kind of points at the bug in your hand.
Are these indigenous to Smokey Banks? I've not seen creatures quite like this before.
They sure are not.
Oh.
So that's something, right?
Are they... Have they migrated from some other eco herb? Are they invasive?
He like is like feeding little like leaves and, berries or whatever to the little bug in your hand, and he goes, "That's kind of what's weird. I think they blew in with the storm. You see, we had some people complaining in the night about monsters and the storm, which it was a bad storm. We don't regularly get this much damage, so it's understandable that someone might exaggerate. Or maybe, you're terrified and one of these fellas flies in your face and all of a sudden, monsters in the storm. Probably all it is."
Probably.
But no, these are weird. Never seen one like it before.
Noted. I'll keep an eye out and see where else they seem to be congregating, I suppose. Should we be removing them from the gardens?
I don't really know what to do about them. They're not great, but they're not the end of the world, and the lizards do love them. And you see, like, this little bug that he was feeding in your hand, like, a very familiar to you lizard that, like, lives regularly in these areas. Like, not the size of, like, a full-blown, like, monitor lizard, but, maybe a foot long in total. Like, scurries up your leg, up your arm, and just goes, like, and just, like, snacks it up and runs off. And he's like, "Seems like the problem might take care of itself, but they're weird, for sure. I have a few saved."
I see. Yep, well, nature can take care of itself, it looks like. Best not to bother it.
Sometimes that's why we have natural predators in here, to keep the populations in order. But definitely, those samples that you talked about, and he gets, like, very excited. Please bring them by soon, maybe once this is all cleaned up and a little bit less terrifying and all that.
I definitely will.
Thank you. And you and him kind of work together. You notice, like, when he's out of his office, he's very, like, pale and thin, and he's actually pretty tall, but he's, like, he doesn't seem infirmed. He just seems like someone who is constantly hunching over something. So, like, his motions are kind of odd, like, as he's slowly grabbing things, but he doesn't seem incapable of moving things. He just moves kind of at his own pace.
Mm-hmm.
He is a slow-moving, meticulous, careful man who has very, like, soft, delicate, nimble fingers,
Gotcha.
Kind of the two of you go around from plant to plant.
You got nimble fingers and dexterous hands over there.
Meanwhile, back at the comms tower, so rebuilding this comms tower is kind of a challenge. It did, like, snap off and get broken, but generally what it is it's speakers up high as well as an antenna that is up high, right? So building that is kind of a challenge because if you try to, like, set the whole thing up at once, you'd have to have, like, a crane, and trying to set it up a piece at a time means that you have to climb up and, like, bolt things together as you're doing this. So, Autumn, you walk up and you see there's an elderly woman who is just kind of, like, standing with her hands on her hips, just, like, sort of, like, barking orders, but not really. You know that thing where it's like, this is clearly the vibe of someone who's, like, trying to get people to do something. And then you see a younger woman next to her. She has, like, her hair, she has kind of, like, big blonde hair that she has all, like, tied back on one side, so it's, like, pulled back on one side, off to the side. She's wearing a lot of flair and, like, a big purse, so there's just, like, buttons on everything, and she seems like she's fiddling with all the equipment and, like, trying to, like, run wires to stuff, but it, is all on the ground. And as you walk up, she stands up and looks to everyone and just goes, "I don't see why it's so difficult. All you have to do is just take this thing in pieces, climb up there, and assemble it at the top. I can't understand it being that difficult."
I'll do it.
You'll do it. Oh, well.
I mean, sorry. Hi, I'm Autumn. I don't think we've met, but I'll climb up that.
I'll tell you what. If you want to know my name, if you can't figure it out yourself, fine. I'm offended that you don't already know it, but if you want to figure it out, if you can climb up and assemble 4 of the 10 of these pieces, I'll tell you my name. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, roll me in athletics of some sort to, like, do this.
I'm doing athletics. That could have been a better roll.
Yeah, if you fail this, I mean, I don't know how much more I can like pitch to you here, you know?
That's a 4.
That's good.
Okay, no, that's not bad. Four's good. Four's good.
Well, I rolled, and the numbers, I rolled a -1. I just have ridiculous athletics.
Yeah. Basically what this has been is a lot of people, like, uncomfortable with the notion of doing this work, just kind of, like, standing around, like, kicking at the things, like, oh yeah, it's gotta get up there, we'll just, start stacking the pieces up, and no one's really doing it. So you grab the base of the tower, which is, like, pretty big and heavy, you know? And she, like, hooks a ratchet to you and just goes, alright, the studs are up there, so all you have to do is just run up the side of the building, throw it down, ratchet it down, and you'll be great. So you start climbing your way up, and you feel really confident at first, because you're like, I climb buildings, that's what I do. I'm the human Spider-Man, you know? I got gloves, I got the whole thing, and then you're like, oh, this thing weighs 100 pounds. Like, this is not light. So you can kind of feel it weighing on your back as you start climbing your way up to the top of the tower and, like, setting these pieces up. And as you do it, you can see everyone on the ground, like, just kind of staring at you, like, what the heck? It's like, and like, as it goes for you, it gets easier because you have to climb higher, but the pieces get lighter and lighter and lighter.
Right, you know that, like, healthy fear of heights, like, most people have, you know, where it's like, you don't want to get too close to a cliff edge? Autumn has absolutely none of that. Right,
so for you, this is like, yeah, this isn't a problem. As you're, like, finishing up, you're, like, getting the last of these pieces up there, she goes, okay, now hold on. I did say I would introduce myself if you built enough pieces, and I think you've built basically the whole tower by yourself while all of these other people sat around and watched. I'm Willow. It's very nice to meet you. I can't believe you haven't heard me before, as I'm the one that always does the announcements.
Well, I'm a little new to town. I've been in town for cumulative a day and a half.
She gasps and goes, have you never heard one of my beautiful broadcasts?
I can't say I have, but I'd like to.
Then how have you ever listened to all of the great music that I've been playing for this town?
What kind of music is it?
That is an impossible question to answer. You see, with the advent of all of this new communication, like, okay, look, I know everyone cares about this because of emergencies, but what this is a way to get music from other eco-herbs. That's the most important part that I've found so far. So, first thing, make sure you tune in and listen to Willow. I do the announcements and also play music while you're working in the garden. So if you're ever in the garden, you hear beautiful music, that's me. Also, I generally say really important things like the Warrens are flooding and Old Town has collapsed and please get to safety. And then this collapsed and kind of into my booth. So there's also that.
Well, it's fixed now? Do you need me to, like, run any wires up, or...?
Yeah, I'll help you with that in a minute, but real quick, okay, so when did you get to town?
Like, now? Like, today, or, like, the first time?
Like, the first time.
How many days have we been gone?
You were gone for, like, 5-6 days, let's say.
Last Wednesday?
So where were you if you weren't here for the last, like, 6 days?
Well... You know the kids that Sheriff Mitchell claimed went home and were missing?
Oh, you mean the ones that were definitely... Okay, now look, I've heard theories about this. Now, it's all over all the chat boards. If you ever bother to read anything or talk to anyone who's from other eco-herbs, it's a very well-known fact. The moon takes people.
Well, yes, I mean...
Men from the moon come down and they take people. Everyone knows about it. It's all over the airwaves.
So here's the thing. Like, Autumn, like, first is like, what? And then, like, thinks about, like, no, we found a literal moon people base. So it's like, well, yeah, like, I get, like, I 1,000% believe you. However, this time it was these blight dogs that actually did it. They're these giant, like, wolf panther things that, like, breathe out decay and suck in all the water. I don't know how it works. My friend Juliet kind of knows that, but not important. They're like 15, 20 feet tall, and they had captured the kids, and as a group, we, like, heroically saved them, and they're back in town with Sheriff Mitchell.
What you're telling me is that for the past week, you've been off on a heroic mission, and I was told nothing about it.
Yes.
All right. Now, look, hear me out. I am always trying to increase. So there's this new media that we don't know what to do with. It's sound over the air. I'm obsessed with it. I don't know if you can tell from, like, my whole thing. And she has, like, band buttons and, like, microphone buttons. You know what I mean? It's like all the pins, all the buttons, and they're all just about basically broadcast journalism, which hasn't existed up until, like, this point, right? She's like, look, I know in the future what everyone's going to do is we're all going to have our own receivers in our homes, and we can all sit around and listen to information come from all the other eco-herbs into our ears. It's crazy. But I'm pioneering this new idea. What you do is you get, like, someone interesting, let's say, right? And then you have someone who's good at talking on the microphone, me, to interview that person, and then we broadcast it out for everyone to hear. That way, everyone knows what's going on. And I think this is a story that everyone needs to hear.
Are you saying you think I'm interesting?
I'm saying that your story needs to be heard by everybody. It's an interesting story to be told to everybody.
I'd love to be on your show.
Great. So she, like, grabs your hand and, like, in a big Sharpie writes, like, a time to meet. And she goes, that's a great idea. We do have to finish wiring this real quick, though. So we got to do that first. And she, like, starts, like, grabbing bundles of wire and, like, putting them in her teeth and, like, feeding them into, like, her kind of big messenger bag that she has all this equipment on. And she goes, don't let me fall and die. She starts, like, climbing up. And you can tell she's, like, done rigging before, but this is definitely not... Like, you're cringing as you're watching this person who's like, this is not really their thing doing this.
Do you just want me to do it? Oh, okay, she's going.
Definitely not. I don't trust anyone with the wires. They're important.
Do you want me to carry them up for you and then you can plug them in?
Well, yeah. But yeah, we'll do it together. It'll be fine. And she, like, hands you bundles of wires. She's, like, kind of, like, swinging loose from this tower, you know?
Autumn is very concerned. What I wanted to say, though, when Willow grabs her hand, it's very hard to tell because Autumn is red-skinned, but she does blush.
All right, perfect. We're going to switch over to Fred. Fred, you start making your way through to the market, and you said you wanted to go and check on your stand, right?
Yep.
So
I guess that's a good question for you. Is what is my, like, store look like? Like, do I have a building or do I have, like, a stall? Okay.
Yeah, kind of both, you know.
Well, because I imagine that I have a building because that's where I'd have to put my forge and my anvil and all that stuff.
Right. So as you walk through the market, you know, over to where your building is, I'll say it's a little bit out of the way just because you're, like, a newer shop, you know, and it was sort of the one that they had available. As you're walking through, you can see that there's a lot of people that are putting a lot of effort into rebuilding stuff. There's a lot of broken glass work, especially, and you can see glass makers, like, basically, like, scooping that up and remelting it into panes that they can, like, refit into the window because a lot of Smokey Banks is glass workers. So there's a lot of effort right now. Just all of the glass workers are basically like, we're not doing art for a little bit. We're making windows, you know?
Right.
As there's a huge effort for them to all be working together on that. But you can see, like, a lot of people that you would recognize kind of as, like, artisan craftsmen, whether, like, woodworkers, metal workers, a lot of glass workers, all kind of rebuilding structures and reforming things. And there's actually quite a large amount of damage in this area, right? Like, sort of, these buildings aren't meant to be super robust, so it's pretty typical that you would see them broken down. And as you walk, I want you to make me some kind of, like, notice a thing check.
Okay. My notice is not very good, but I will try.
That's fine.
That is a -1.
That's a -1. Okay. So what I'll say with a -1, it's like, wow, there's a lot of caved-in roofs. It's kind of odd, you know? I guess it makes sense. Sure, nothing really odd to notice there. So you walk up to your shop, and you can see it's pretty extensive. Like, you almost feel your heart drop, like, ah, shoot, like, I just opened this shop, and yeah, the roof's, like, smashed in. You can see, like, timbers have fallen down into where you would like to have put your storefront and now are not going to be able to. And it's like, it's a crappy feeling, you know, right? To be like, great, okay, so I guess I got to start trying to figure out how to repair this. And as you like go up to your door, you push it open. It's like not even locked anymore. You know, it just creaks open, and you walk in and you notice a really odd smell. It's kind of like a sharp, I don't want to say acidic and give the impression that I mean that it's literally like acid, not like the chemical acid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a vinegary sort of.
Yeah, it's just like a sharp, bitter smell. It's like, ugh, that stinks, you know, and you're trying to like think, what in my shop could have done this? And as you walk, your feet kind of like smush into a thick layer of mud that has like caked itself on the floor. And it's sort of dark in here. Like, the building is largely collapsed. It's daylight outside, but your windows are kind of like, it's sort of dingy in here now. But as you look around, you realize there's like piles of mud, like working their way up the wall in like these weird smooth curves. That's like, this doesn't look like, okay, like they're being mud flooded into the bottom. Sure, that makes sense. And similarly, like the window, you know, is like you could see was kind of like smeared and built. And then you hear a sound, just like this clicking, skittering sound somewhere way in the back of your shed, right? And as you take another step forward, you again like smush like above your ankle in mud. And as you do, that clattering, like, you know, like almost like rattling stick sound gets louder, and then something from the middle of the room just like stands up, and you're just staring at two big glowing greenish eyes, kind of like a milky greenish glow staring at you. And you can't totally see what it is because you're in darkness, you know, but you can see two kind of like bent thin legs out in front of it. This thing probably stands about 7 feet tall right now, and its legs are kind of trembling as it just stares at you. What do you do?
I think Fred is going to nope out of there. He's going to kind of back up, back out the busted door, close it behind him, and go find Autumn, whoever he can find, Autumn or Estelle or Juliet.
I love how Autumn is the character. Like, oh man, this looks like scary shit. I need to go find Autumn. I need someone to deal with this.
Actually, you know what? I think he's specifically looking for Autumn because he knows she would be excited by unknown something or others.
You take one step backwards, right? Like, squish backwards, and as soon as you do, this thing, like, lowers to the ground, and you just hear it rush, and you like almost lose track of where it is, and then something hits you in the knees and knocks you back out of the door that you just came out of. And you're basically getting rolled right now by what seems to you to be like a gigantic beetle, right? So if it stands on hind legs about 7 feet tall, but then almost 7 feet wide as its like round, shiny black its shell is. It has two giant luminous green eyes, these big long arms, and its back, like chitinous shell, can split, and you see sort of wings sticking out, but not too much, as it's kind of like just trampling you away. What do you do?
Are we like outside now?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Outside with me?
Yeah.
Does anybody around see this thing?
Oh, I mean, there's people screaming for sure and running.
So it's like, you said it's like rolling me up, like it's kind of trampling over me.
Yeah.
Like a dung beetle.
Fred is going to try to take out his hammer and hit it.
Okay, roll me some hammer attack.
Alright, I'm going to use fighting, I guess.
Alright, roll me a fighting check.
That is a 2.
Okay, so with a 2, you, that does not have any raises, so you're able to do damage, but you suffer strain, right? So you, suffer 2 strain, like physical strain, as you're just basically getting drug across the ground. You start just like clubbing at it with your hammer. It kind of like, it doesn't make any noises, but once you hit it once and kind of keep hitting it, it sort of skitters away from you. and then you get like a second to right yourself and look around, and it's just like flat to the ground. It's shelved flat to the ground. Its eyes pointed directly at you, as it just looks like this giant 7-foot like dome of shiny black covered in mud, with mud stuck to it. You can't see its legs anymore as it's hunkered all the way to the ground, just staring at you.
Jeez, okay. I don't know if I can do this in a single turn or not.
Just tell me what you want to do. This is pretty open, Like, there isn't another person taking turns here.
Okay, right. And I'm trying to figure out if I have enough to do this. Basically, what I want to try to do, I'm guessing there's, like, plenty of, like, smashed up wood just, like, on the ground.
Yeah, there definitely is.
I don't know how much of it is, like, still, like, waterlogged, but what he wants to try to do is he wants to try to set, like, make a torch. Like, make some kind of torch thing to try to scare this thing away.
Oh, interesting. Let me think about that for a second. Okay, go ahead and do that. I want you to know this is one of those instances where you're learning things, even if that means that things don't have the effect you want. Does that make sense?
Right.
But it's a good impulse, and it will teach you something.
So would that be crafting, I guess?
Yeah. Go ahead and just make me like a quick craft check to like, spark your metal on the like flagstones to make a little fire and some debris and see what it does.
That's a 3.
Okay, so you like start like clattering your hammer on the stone, and
I do have a lighter, but I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know if I have anything that can. Like...
Okay, great. Yeah. So you just flick your lighter then, real easy, right? So you flick your lighter, and I'll say this gives you some extra juice on this roll, and you light up a torch, and as soon as you light the torch, its eyes go from a milky green, they change color to orange, and it rushes towards not you, but the fire. And you kind of like realize this at the last second and jump out of the way as it grabs up the torch. Like, it doesn't seem like it's trying to put it out. It seems like it doesn't know what fire is as it grabs the torch and just like holds it close to itself, like grabbing at it with all of its little feet and claws as the fire is put out by it just stamping on it. And then once the fire goes out, its eyes turn from orange and it just drops the stick back up on the ground and then just stares at you again. And now it's like taking slow steps towards you, upright again. Just slow, ominous pacing steps.
Yeah.
It reaches like a claw out, and it's sort of weird because this doesn't seem like an immediate like lunge violent attack. It just pushes a claw into you and starts pushing you down to the ground, just slowly, harder and harder and harder. This like probably 300-pound thing just leaning into you as it's pushing what is now feeling kind of sharp into your chest, like, ow, as it's just pushing you down to the ground.
Gosh. I mean, I guess I gotta take another swing at it with my hammer. Try to get this thing off me.
Yep.
Come on, dice, be friendly. That's okay. That's a 3.
Okay, so with a 3, I'll say you take 1 strain instead of 2, as it finally, like, you feel your feet, like,
unfortunately,
slip out.
Actually, here's a question. Quick question. Did our strain reset from...
All strain is gone, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Depending on the type of strain, you could have, like, a lingering aspect for an injury if you sustained a major one, but none of you sustained, like, huge...
Right, that was going to be my question, because that if stress had not reset, then that would have been a consequence.
Right. And in this case, for sure, all strain or stress does, and then, like, consequences they, like, heal off, basically, I'll say.
Right.
Is how I'm running the game, that they'll heal off unless they're pretty substantial, and then they just become a trait associated with that, but none of you had, like, missing foot, or, like, permanently crippled leg. You don't have any of that.
Right.
So yeah, as you like feel your feet kind of like lurch, you just like crack it in the head and its eyes like go out and it rolls up on its back and like kind of does that curl in leg thing as it just sits there all curled up. As you look around, you can see people starting to kind of come up to you, and you see a familiar face. You see Honey, the like kind of old lady that you worked with in the gardens, limping up to you, and she just goes, "Hey, good looking. How was your first customer?" Thanks for listening to this episode of Wanderlust. Music for this show is credited down below. If you like this campaign, you can find more of our shows at the Wandering Gamer website or on Podbean. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links in the description. Now bear in mind, in the wilds, some wander to get lost, and some wander to find themselves.